What is going on, guys? Hope you are doing well. Thank you for tuning in today. I have not done it yet, so I thought that I would kick off my rankings with quarterbacks. I am going to go over the top 30 options for you guys today, give you guys the depth that you are looking for those in 2 quarterback and super flex leagues. And if you are just in a single quarterback league, that is okay as well. My rankings are still going to be relevant for you. What I wanted to do was break down my guys into tiers, give you guys the reasons why I have them ranked the way that I do. I want to highlight some of the reasons I think that they could hit for us this year, and then also go over some of the potential pitfalls that we might face as drafters of some of these players as well. So we are going to start in the first tier, and there are 3 quarterbacks that I have here. All of these guys I think have the clearest, most obvious path to an overall quarterback 1 finish on the season. My number 1 is not going to surprise anyone. It is Patrick Mahomes. Kansas City quarterback basically has everything you want in an elite option. He gives you that upside in the run game, not as much as a couple of the other guys in this tier, but he still has enough in the tank there to help you out and boost his stats. But obviously it is about the touchdown passes and the passing yardage. Mahomes has been an absolute baller over the last couple years. In 3 straight years, he's actually thrown 39 touchdown passes or more, and he has been a top 8 finisher at the position for 5 straight seasons. So if you want someone who is basically an automatic hit, then Patrick Mahomes is your guy. You are going to have to pay for it though. So for me personally, if I am doing single quarterback leagues, I am probably passing on really the top 3 guys because I just do not want to pay the premium. But if you are in Superflex, you are going to want probably someone in for sure the first 3 tiers as I go over these, because if you get behind at the position in Superflex, you are setting yourself up for failure. But number 1 is Patrick Mahomes. He's been averaging nearly 24 points a game over the course of his career. So he is about as safe as you can possibly get. And then right behind him at 2, I have Josh Allen. Allen has been a monster in fantasy basically since he had his down rookie season. He bounced back and has not looked back since. He has been a quarterback 2 overall or better in 3 straight years. So he is right behind Mahomes, and I'll be honest, if I have the 1-1 in Superflex, I am considering Josh Allen. I do not think that you are crazy to do that. Couple reasons for that is the weapons around him. Mahomes does not have a ton to work with. Sky Moore has the potential to be his number 1 receiver because Kadarius Toney can't stay healthy. Whereas when you look at Allen, he has a guy named Stephon Diggs who has balled out ever since he has been in Buffalo, and I also expect a bounce back year from Gabe Davis. And as if Allen needed more help, the Bills also drafted Dalton Kincaid at tight end to give him even more help, probably the best pass-catching receiver that was available in the draft. So that gives a little bit of the leg up to Allen. However, I still have him as the 2nd best option at the position this year. The last quarterback I have in this tier is Jalen Hurts. I think he's got a clear path to being the quarterback 1 overall. Awesome weapons around him. One of the best 1-2 wide receiver combos in the league. Hurts made big time progression as a passer last year, but he still gives you a massive boost on the ground. Hurts has double-digit rushing scores and also 750 rushing yards or more in back-to-back seasons, which is a massive boost for his fantasy points per game. He led all quarterbacks in that category last year, scoring 25.6. Hurts has everything you look for in an elite option, just like these other guys, and I expect another big season from him and the Philadelphia offense in 2023. In my next tier, it is Lamar Jackson to start it off. I think he has a pretty clear path to the number 1 overall quarterback as well. His issue is he has not been able to stay healthy, just 12 games played in back-to-back seasons, and I am not sure if he's going to be able to change that in 2023. Now, the reason that we love Jackson obviously starts on the ground. He's averaging over 63 yards on the ground per game in his 5-year career. That is a major boost, and it means that he is never going to hurt you when he is starting as long as he doesn't get hurt, of course. Now, the other reason that I love him is new offensive coordinator Todd Monken. He is going to bring a faster paced and more pass-friendly offense, and that is something that Lamar needs desperately. Number one, to help him stay healthy, but also to take advantage of a hopefully revamped wide receiver group. Now, I will admit I do have my doubts about Odell Beckham Jr. I think he's a little too long in the tooth, and we have not seen, big time production from him in over a year and a half, and that was in a small sample size when he was in LA, really in a perfect situation for him. It is not the same case here in Baltimore. The other guys, Rashad Bateman, has flashed some great potential as a past #1 round pick. However, he has not been able to consistently put it together on the field. Most of that is because he has not been able to stay healthy. The guy I love most in that room is actually rookie Zay Flowers. He is getting a lot of hype out of camp, and I think he has the potential to take over the alpha role in this passing offense sooner rather than later. Obviously, at the tight end position, Mark Andrews is going to do his thing. He is a top 2 pick at the position. He is going to help out Lamar tremendously. Jackson is my number 4 quarterback. The next guy that I am going to look at number 5, the last quarterback in this tier, I have Joe Burrow, who I absolutely loved last year, thought he was undervalued. He ended up crushing, and he was a big hit for people who invested him. I think the same thing can be had here in 2023, but we are paying a little bit more of a premium for it. Burrow has over 4,400 passing yards and 34 touchdowns or more in each of the last 2 seasons. I think that is basically going to be his floor this season when we consider the weapons that he has to work with. Jamar Chase, a clear top 3 wide receiver in the NFL, and then T. Higgins, one of the best number 2s, if not the best. He could be a top 15 talent at the position as well. And then the O-line for Cincinnati, it's going to be much improved as long as they can stay healthy. They got banged up last year after improving it. If they get a little bit more health luck, Cincinnati could easily have an offensive line that performs in the upper half of the league. I don't love the calf injury that he is dealing with in camp, but it should be over and done with sooner rather than later. And really, there is not a ton of risk in Burrow, which is one of the reasons I have him as a top 5 option in 2023. Now we're going to move to my 3rd tier. Now these are guys who still, for the most part, have overall quarterback 1 potential, but I really think their ceiling is closer to top 3, maybe top 5, than fully breaking through to that upper echelon. My 3rd tier starts with Justin Herbert. I think he still has all the upside in the world. He has a great offensive situation. The new change to offensive coordinator Kellen Moore, I think, is going to help unlock Herbert. I absolutely love it for Los Angeles. He has a great group of playmakers around him. Mike Williams, as long as he can stay healthy, is an alpha in the red zone. Keenan Allen is about as dependable as they come, even though he did get banged up a little bit last season. And as if the Chargers needed even more ammunition, they also drafted in the 1st round rookie wide receiver Quentin Johnson. He's got big playability and could help take this offense to the next level. And then, of course, we have probably the best pass catching back in the NFL in Austin Eckler to even give him more help. He has been a quarterback 1, that's a top 12 scorer in 3 years, every year of his career. So there isn't any reason really to doubt Herbert, although the price here is pretty steep. You can usually get him between the 4th and the 6th round. So in a 1 quarterback league, I do not hate that because, like I said, I think he has that upside that you look for if you are paying a premium at the position. Next up, at number 7, I have Justin Fields. The big question everyone is asking, and the reason that many have Fields in the consensus top 10, is they are believing he is going to make a Jalen Hurts type leap this year. Now, last year, Fields flashed, especially in the second half of the season. He ran for over 1,100 yards, and he also had 8 scores on the ground last year. However, the big question is that passing game, because he only threw for over 200 yards 2 times over the course of the entire season last year. That is not going to cut it if we are going to pay a premium for him. How is he going to make that transition? Hopefully he worked in the offseason, but the other big addition is DJ Moore coming over from Carolina in that deal for the #1 overall pick. To actually get a true alpha for Justin Fields was a brilliant move by the Bears, and now Darnell Mooney can slide into that #2 role where I think he is probably more fit to be in anyway, and that is going to help elevate his game as well. So there's a clear path that we can see where Justin Fields could slide in, move up the rankings, and really join that upper echelon of quarterbacks because of what he does on it with his feet and now what he can potentially do through the air. The last guy that I have in this third tier, and I'm not sure I see quarterback 1 overall numbers from him, but I definitely see a path to him being a top 3 guy, and that is Trevor Lawrence. That top 12 schedule means that he is going to have an easier time than most this year. He also has Calvin Ridley coming back, who I think is a big time addition. Now, I am not as high on Ridley as others are. I still think he's gotten, wide receiver 1 and alpha type ability, but it might take a little bit longer than some believe for him to actually get there. We know the connection with Christian Kirk was absolutely awesome last year, probably takes another step forward as well. We saw Evan Ingram break out at the tight end position, so there are weapons aplenty for Lawrence, and if Travis Etienne can take a step forward as a pass catcher, which we all assumed was going to happen last year and really didn't, that just means another weapon for Lawrence and an opportunity for him to make a monster leap in 2023 after being the quarterback 8 in scoring last year. We already saw last year Lawrence was able to double his touchdown rate in 2022, and he also moved up nearly 7% in his completion percentage from what he was in 2021. So we already saw that first leap in a first-year offense, and really the sky is the limit as he continues to learn, grow, and get more comfortable in it. Into my fourth tier, I have 3 quarterbacks here as well. It's going to start with Tua Tagovailoa from Miami. He led the NFL in passer rating last season, 105.5. I think people don't understand just how good he was in the limited time that he was actually healthy. Now, of course, with Tua, that is the reason that I have him here in the 4th tier and why he is not a top 5, top 7 drafted quarterback. It's that question about his health. Because if he can stay healthy, there is no doubt that he will put up massive numbers in this offense. Tua also led the NFL in yards per attempt, so it's not like he was dinking and dunking last season. And finally, he was #1 in touchdown percentage, converting on 6.3% of his pass attempts. Tua has 2 incredible pass catchers around him that make his job extremely easy in Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. These guys are fast. All he has to do is really hit them in space accurately, and they do the rest with yards after the catch ability. So Tua has a clear path to a top 5, top 3 quarterback situation if he can stay healthy all year, but that if is massive, I have to admit. And if I am drafting, to be honest, I am probably avoiding Tua, as risk is not something I love to take on. But if you are a gambler, you could hit big with Tua and catch lightning in a bottle should he play 17 games. To round out my top 10, I believe in the bounce back year for Deshaun Watson. I think that he really helps Cleveland turn the corner this year. Last year, we threw it out the window. So much went wrong. So much rust was obvious by the time he actually got in the field late in the year. And Watson was not the same person that we saw in 4 or 5 years ago. But I do think that there is at least a big part of that player still left. And that is why I have Watson as a top 10 option. We have so quickly forgotten how dominant he was in Houston while playing at an MVP type level in one of the worst teams in NFL, well, maybe not history, but a very bad Texans team. Now, from 2018 to 2020, this was prime Watson years before all the other stuff happened. Watson posted finishes of quarterback 5 overall, quarterback 2, and quarterback 6. So in the 3-year span, he was quarterback 6 at worst. He averaged over 33 touchdowns per year, and he also gave you a big boost on the ground. Now, there has been a bunch of stuff that has kept him from getting back to that level, but that is all now in the past, in the rear view mirror. It is only football ahead for Deshaun Watson, and that is why I believe he is a top 10 option this year, and he obviously has top 2 upside as well. We think about the pass catchers in Cleveland, underrated. Amari Cooper had a big year in his first year in Cleveland. A lot of that was without Watson. We also have Donovan Peoples-Jones, who took a step forward as well. And Cleveland also just brought in Elijah Moore, former first-round pick of only 3 years ago, who has a lot of untapped potential that could take the next step in this offense. We have a great offensive line in Cleveland. Nick Chubb is still there, which means he's going to get 12 or 1,300 yards at least as a support. There is everything in front of Watson to have a monster year, bounce back from what he had to go through in 2022. My last quarterback in this tier is one that I just cannot help but get excited about, and it may come back to bite me, but I am all on the Anthony Richardson train in 2023. We look at the situation that he walks into in Indianapolis. I don't think it's as doom and gloom as some might think. New head coach in Indy, Shane Steichen, helped develop Jalen Hurts in Philadelphia, and he also helped Justin Herbert in Los Angeles. Both of those guys seem to be doing just fine. Jalen Hurts, his rookie season, was quarterback 6 in points per game. So there's a clear path based on what Richardson could do where he could put big time upside in our lineups. We know that the offensive line last year in Indianapolis was not ideal and it took a step backwards, but they still have above average options here, and they should be a top 12, top 15 offensive line at worst. That will make his job easier, and as long as Jonathan Taylor decides to play football, he'll have a top 3 running back behind him, giving him the support he needs in the running game. The receivers are not bad either. Michael Pittman Jr. may have taken a step back in year 2, but he is still a legitimate wide receiver 1 and alpha that can take over a game and give Richardson the help that he needs. And then we didn't see a ton of it from Alec Pierce as the number 2, but he certainly flashed last year. He has some upside as well. The last reason I really love him is that division, probably the weakest in the NFL. He's got a top 11 easiest schedule to deal with, but know that if you are taking and pulling the trigger on Richardson, you are drafting for the ceiling here because the floor could be fairly low. I would say Richardson has got the most massive risk reward for me, but the thing is, he is going right now as quarterback 17, not where I have him in the top 12. You're going to get him a lot cheaper, and for me, if I am looking for a quarterback with massive upside that late, Richardson is my guy. On to my next tier. We're into tier 5 now, and this one has a little bit of heft to it. I have 5 quarterbacks here, and I start with my last quarterback 1. At number 12, it is Kirk Cousins. First thing that's going to stick out is that top 10 strength of schedule. Have to love that. Minnesota dominated through the air last year already, so to get another crack at a top 10 schedule in 2023 just means that more fireworks are coming for this offense. Kirk is one of the more underrated quarterbacks in fantasy football. He has been a quarterback 1, that is top 12 in each of the last 3 seasons, and last year he was the overall quarterback 7 in the first year of that new Kevin O'Connell offense. He threw for 4,547 yards, 4th in the NFL, and 29 touchdown passes, which ranked 5th in the league. So Kirk obviously has the stats to back it up. Let's look at what he has surrounding him this year. We have TJ Hawkinson, who is a undoubted top 5 tight end in the NFL, and he put up big numbers for Minnesota in the second half of the year after the Vikings traded for him. I think it was week 7 or 8. I fully believe Hawk takes a step forward and really makes it hard for defenses to cover the middle of the field. The Vikings also gave Kirk even more weaponry by using a first-round pick on wide receiver Jordan Addison. He has looked awesome in camp. I think he is a perfect complement to Justin Jefferson after losing Adam Thielen in free agency. I think think at worst, Addison is a one-for-one swap for Thielen, and at best, he could really take that number 2 role and run with it and put up some pretty big numbers for Minnesota, which makes KJ Osborne an excellent number 3 for the Vikings. This passing attack is absolutely loaded and is going to make Kirk Cousins' life very easy this season. My lucky number 13 is going to have to be this year. I do have to admit, I have some doubts about Geno Smith. There are some hesitancy because we saw what he did last year. It came out of absolute nowhere, and there is just this assumption that Geno is going to run it back in 2023, just pick up right where he left off. And I do understand that there are a lot of things that would point us in that direction where we could believe it. They just drafted JSN, a huge investment in the first round, which gives him Metcalf, Lockett, JSN, one of the best trios at wide receiver in the NFL. They also have an improving offensive line in Seattle after spending investments in the draft there over the last couple of seasons. We know that Kenneth Walker in the backfield was a big hit last year, and they also drafted in the second round Zach Charbonnet. So there is a lot of investment from this team in Seattle to give Geno the pieces he needs to run it back and continue to succeed. But there's also that second half of it that we have to acknowledge. And that was before last year, Smith had not played in more than 5 games in a season since way back in 2014. So yeah, he could easily run it back and be that guy, but he could also be the guy that he was for the past 7 or 8 seasons before he had that breakout comeback player of the year last year in Seattle. I don't think that fear is truly baked into his ADP here. So Geno is someone personally I'm probably avoiding this season unless I am getting him ridiculously cheap, because he does have that upside, and that's why I think he is worthy of being placed here at 13. Next up is Jared Goff, and Goff is someone that just continually gets overlooked season after season, and all the guy does is show up, produce, and give you guys chances at pulling W's week in and week out. I'm going to give you his quarterback finishes over the last 6 seasons, and I think you are going to be very surprised. So starting oldest and coming to last year, we have quarterback 8, quarterback 9, back-to-back years where he was QB 15, then he was quarterback 25 in a year that he missed 2 games, and then finally last year he was QB 10. So really his floor has been quarterback 15 unless he has an injury, and that was a 1-year blip and not something that we've seen consistently. He's got Amon-Ra, he's got Jameson Williams, of course that 6-game suspension, and he also has Jahmyr Gibbs, who the Detroit Lions used a top 12 pick on this year, who is an excellent pass-catching back and just gives Goff another weapon in the passing game. The final thing I want to take into consideration here is that Detroit is a top 5 offensive line in the entire league. That makes his life easy. And this is also going to be the 2nd year of offensive coordinator Ben Johnson's system. So you would expect at least a small step forward because of that. Next up at number 15, I have Daniel Jones. I am lower than consensus on Jones, and I want to explore why that is going to be. Because Jones was quarterback 7 overall last year. He had a monster season, but I do think that regression is coming. Jones had 700 rushing yards last year. I don't think he gets there. And he also had 7 rushing touchdowns, and he could easily just get 2 or 3 this season. What I think that means is he's going to have to pick it up through the air if he is going to be that top 12 quarterback that people are currently drafting him as. However, Jones has averaged 200 passing yards and just a single touchdown pass per game last season in his 15 starts. He also does not have a true number 1 receiver, so that makes it even more likely that he is going to struggle once again through the air in 2023. Now I will say the Giants did add Darren Waller. Should be an awesome addition if he can stay healthy. Danny Dimes also has to deal with the 2nd toughest schedule in the league. The upside here is that it's also year 2 in Brian Daboll's system, and that should mean a jump in efficiency for Daniel Jones. However, I have him at quarterback 15 because I think there is more risk for some regression from him that is baked into his current ADP. Next up on my list, my Sweet 16 and the last quarterback in this tier, I have Russell Wilson. The biggest change for Russ is going to be the move to Sean Payton. Wilson does have a solid group of pass catchers around him. He has Jerry Jeudy, who took a step up last year when he was healthy. Courtland Sutton might be able to break out if he could ever stay healthy for a complete season. And then they also invested in rookie wideout Marvin Mims Jr., who has dazzled at camp and I think has a lot of potential as a sleeper pick in this offense. You then look at the backfield, Javonte Williams coming back, hopefully fully healthy, and they also signed Samaje Perine in free agency, who filled in admirably last year when Joe Mixon went down for Cincy, and has shown an ability to carry the running back one load if Williams is not ready to go as the season starts. Plenty of reasons to think that Wilson could bounce back. We obviously know what Sean Payton did with Drew Brees, and I don't expect that kind of a leap in 2023 from Wilson, but we don't have to because of his current price. All he has to do is show some decent improvement with this group of playmakers, and Russell will repay his cheap price tag in 2023. In my next tier, and all the way down at number 17, probably is going to catch me some flack, but I do not care. I have Dak Prescott. I do not understand the general consensus here of Prescott being a top 12, top 10 quarterback. It just does not make any sense with me. I'm going to go over some of the reasons I think that Prescott is way riskier than his current ADP would suggest. And the first is pretty obvious. No more Kellen Moore in Dallas. And that means that we have to believe in Mike McCarthy as an offensive coordinator who said he was taking over the play calling. Not something that I am interested in investing in. Dak has also finishes of quarterback 30 and quarterback 20 in 2 out of the last 3 seasons. And Prescott led the league last year in picks, and that was with playing only 12 games. So there are a lot of negatives that are just not being baked into what we are having to pay for Prescott. Now, some good news is there should be some more passing volume for Dallas. Now that Zeke is gone, he still has CeeDee Lamb, an alpha and one of the top 10 wide receivers in the NFL. But that number 2 wide receiver spot still has a question. Does Michael Gallup step up finally? Who knows? And Dalton Schultz is also out of Dallas as well. So a lot of things that Dak is going to be dealing with. Now, we know he still offers a little bit of rushing upside. He has a big arm and can ball when given the opportunity and when healthy. But I think where I have him is more accurate based on his injury history and all of the changes that this offense is facing. Up next at 18, another one that's probably going to get me in some hot water, but Aaron Rodgers is here at 18. That strength of schedule, just like Prescott, in the upper 20s. And Rodgers was just quarterback 13 last year. So why are we assuming that he is going to have an easy transition in a very difficult division and a very difficult conference? I don't understand. Most people have Rodgers, quarterback 12, quarterback 14. I am highly down on him because of all the things that he has to face this season. Rodgers is also 39 years old. He's thrown for less than 27 touchdowns, less than 4,000 yards in 2 out of the last 4 years. So we see that decline in his production. Rodgers had 12 interceptions last year, which was actually 1 more than his previous 3 years combined before that. In fantasy points per game at the position, Rodgers was just quarterback 21. The Packers were run heavy. The Jets are probably going to be more run heavy than people expect. I just don't see a clear path where Rodgers threatens quarterback 1 numbers, but right now he is being drafted like it, so in most drafts I am avoiding Rodgers altogether. Next up at 19, and the last one I have in this tier, is Brock Purdy. And that is just for the sheer reason that there is so much unknown with San Francisco's quarterback situation. They can say all they want how Brock Purdy's their guy, but guess what? If he struggles early on, then he is going to be out of a job, and it'll be Darnold, maybe it'll be Trey Lance. There are just a lot of risk in this 49er passing attack. Whoever is going to be the starting quarterback will produce because there are excellent weapons here. But San Francisco invested a ton in Trey Lance, and they also went and got Darnold for a reason, and that just gives me pause to invest too much in that quarterback position when I don't know how long they're going to be there. In my next tier and finishing my top 20, I have Derek Carr from New Orleans. A top 3 strength of schedule means there's plenty of upside to be had. Carr has been a top 20 quarterback, so where I have him ranked in 6 straight seasons, at this cost, he is basically a guarantee to hit. Carr is also averaging 23 touchdown passes each of the last 4 years. However, the thing that we are concerned about and the reason I've dropped him here is because of the interceptions. 14 picks in each of the last 2 years. There is some upside for Carr. He had over 4,800 yards passing just 2 seasons ago, and he's got decent wide receiver options, especially if Chris Olave takes a step forward and Mike Thomas can get healthy for the first time in 3 seasons. So there is more to like for Derek Carr this late in drafts. At 21 and my second quarterback in tier 7, I have Bryce Young. Biggest concern I have here is the lack of weapons around him. He does not have much in the passing game. It is going to be a lot of rushing for this team, I think, in 2023 because they also have a great defense. But Young offers a little upside with his legs, and I think that that will help carry him and make him a quarterback 2 option in 2023. There's also a young improving offensive line here that should help him, and that pairing with new head coach Frank Reich, who has been known as a quarterback whisperer in his time. Next at 22, it is Matthew Stafford. You hate the strength of schedule here, 29th. It's not something that you like to see, and it is why I have dropped him outside of my top 20. Stafford also has almost a pick a game over his last 26 contests, so that is concerning as well. And we saw his passing yards per game drop in 2022 over 50 yards from what we saw in that monster season in 2021. Part of that could be injury, part of that could be regression. It's probably a little bit of both. Next up on my list at 23 is someone I really had trouble placing, and that is Jordan Love. And that is because we just don't know hardly anything about him. It is a roll of the dice because there's very little data to work with. However, some reasons that I think he has some upside that we're maybe not taking into consideration this year. Number 1 is that strength of schedule, the easiest projected schedule in the NFL. Obviously, playing in the division he does makes that easier. Minnesota's defense, horrendous. Detroit's worse than the NFL. Chicago, not far behind. So 6 games, Jordan Love is going to have above average to potentially elite matchup bonuses because they are playing such a horrible defense. The other thing that we like about Jordan Love is that he does have a solid supporting cast. Christian Watson really exploded in the second half of last year. Romeo Doubs flashed at least decent potential, and then a great running game to be able to lean on with A.J. Dillon and Aaron Jones. That's going to make Jordan Love's transition easier, and I think he does have legit top 15 upside if everything goes right for him this year. Into tier 8, I take a step down to go to 24 for my last QB2. It is Kyler Murray. That strength of schedule is the first reason I have him down so far. And the second reason is we just don't know how many games he will miss. There is a universe in which Arizona is so bad so early that they decide to leave Kyler Murray on the bench for most, if not all of this season. We just don't know when he's going to be back. Now, the reasons to love Murray, especially at this type of a price range, are clear. He's averaged over 21 fantasy points per game in his career. He was the quarterback 2 overall just 3 seasons ago in 2020. So massive upside if Murray ends up playing, but really you are waiting, and in a 2 quarterback league, you are basically drafting him as depth and then hoping that he can hit for you. Rounding out my top 25 and up next, I have Kenny Pickett. Best thing I can say about him is that he did improve as the season went on. He was absolutely brutal early, but that changed as he got more reps. He's also underrated as a rusher. He had 237 yards on the ground, 3 rushing scores, and he has solid options out wide in Deontay Johnson and George Pickens, who he clearly had a rapport with. He should have a solid running game with Najee Harris, and the offensive line, even though it is a concern, is going to be much improved from last year. Now, there is a path, I think, where Pickett can be a top 20 guy, but I don't think it is very clear, and Pittsburgh probably is a pretty run-heavy team because of that great defense. So while he's a top 25 option for me, I don't see a ton of upside for him this season. The last quarterback that I have in this tier is CJ Stroud. Once again, obviously a ton of unknowns for him. I have big concerns about the offense that he is in. He doesn't really have any great wide receiver options. Should have a solid run game, and that defense, God knows what they're going to do this year. So Stroud, upside because of the unknown. He did have obviously a ton of talent coming into the NFL, so I like him, but we don't know much about it. Into my 9th tier, basically the final one. For starting quarterbacks at 27, I have Jimmy Garoppolo. I've never liked him very much, and if you have watched the channel over the last couple of years, you would know that. I think there's some upside in Vegas because of Devontae Adams. However, not someone I am going to be invested much in this year. At 28, Mac Jones. New England refuses to give him pass-catching help. Juju Smith-Schuster ain't it, Bill Belichick, so I do not like what they've surrounded him with. The running game will be good with Stevenson, but it won't be enough. I am out on Mac Jones in 2023. Desmond Ridder, I think a surprising upside because I do like Drake London, and I think Kyle Pitts has a chance at bouncing back, but we don't know if he keeps the job all year or what that situation is in Atlanta. They might just feed Bijan Robinson until he can't eat no more, and then feed him some more. So not someone I'm going to be heavily invested in as well. And then at 30, it's Ryan Tannehill. Could lose his job to Will Levis, could lose his job to Malik Willis. Who knows what's going on in Tennessee, and I don't think it's going to be a very good team anyway, so not someone I want a big piece of this season. And that will do it for my quarterback rankings. I will be updating all of my rankings in 2 weeks' time, right before that, final weekend, really the prime drafting weekend for fantasy football. But I wanted to get this out in case you are drafting in the middle of the month. Why you'd want to do that to yourself, the world may never know. But if that fits your fancy and that's when your league drafts, I wanted to have these rankings available to you. I have running back rankings coming out very soon. Wide receiver and tight end rankings will follow that. So make sure that you like the video first and foremost. Please consider subscribing to the channel as well. That helps me out a ton. And then make sure you hit the notifications because I have a bunch of videos coming out daily over the next month to help prep you guys for fantasy football season. Drop any questions that you might have down below. Who are some of your favorite picks at ADP? I would love to discuss with you. By doing that and going back and forth, we do better together. That is what Relentless Press is all about. And that is all I got for you. So until next time, this is Relentless Press. I'm your host, Abraham Opat, and I will see you next time.